group playing touch football. This is a cluster of pigeons fighting over breadcrumbs. And this here is a woman who's chasing a man who stole her purse.
In the movie and in some individuals, frequently they may show some signs of being eccentric, not functioning well, lacking social skills. And these are kind of pre-existing symptoms, beginning of symptoms, which may be an early marker or manifestation that they're going to progress to a full-blown disorder.
Who's following?
Drop's been compromised. Get out!
This movie is kind of like going on the schizophrenia ride. Remember how they even dealt with light a couple of times, and they even had some scratching sounds when he started to kind of lose it a little bit, right?
Schizophrenia is a brain disease that begins in the late teens and early 20s in most cases, that is characterized predominantly by hearing voices, what we call auditory hallucinations.
Now! Machine Charles can coexist and think once the machine parts in other existing so parts of the Charles forces Charles is watching with Alicia.
I have had patients where I talk to them and where they say, you know, don't bother me, Doc, I've got these other people I'm talking to.
There's no one there, John. There's no one there.
He's right there.
These other people that they're talking to in their head are very, very real. And I think the movie portrayed that very well.
I've had schizophrenia for about 35 years. And over the past 35 years, I've gradually tried to build myself back so that I could not only go into the workplace, but I could also work in mental health. John Nash presents and has a lot of real common characteristics of schizophrenia, that kind of oblique look.
He was holding the baby, kind of very disinterested, detached way, like he didn't have any sense of what this baby was or what he was doing. It showed you some of the emotional distance and barriers that schizophrenics frequently develop in their relationships with people.
Remember the way that he walked, that disassociated gait that he had. You know, in other words, he wasn't in his body quite, you know. He had all that anxiety, so much anxiety.
This is real.
Her support of Nash during his illness was heroic. It was a wonderful model for families to strive for. That's the kind of thing that conveys to the person with schizophrenia is, I care about you, I'm going to try and help you.
I had a friend of mine once say he thought mental illness was a broken heart. And there is some truth to that. The movie portrays a real person who ends up broken and keeps trying to get his life back.
You're sick. You're sick, John.
I've wiped out on a lot of relationships. And even with my own mother and father, and I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for the changes I put people through over the years. Life with me hasn't always been pleasant. And people believed in me, people who I knew, and I'm really indebted to them.
You can't reason your way out of it.
Why not? Why can't I?
Because your mind is where the problem is in the first place. John has schizophrenia.
Roughly 1 out of 4 people who originally get the first symptoms of schizophrenia will recover. For the vast majority, they will have it all their lives, either more severely or less severely. A substantial number of people with schizophrenia tend to do better as they get older, for reasons we don't fully understand. It's almost as if the disease process in the brain burns out. And in Nash's case, he clearly was doing better, even without medication in the later years.
And I thought it was a realistic picture of recovery. He was still facing the aftershocks of his own mental illness in the motion picture. He still had almost a broken physical being, but his spirit was there.
I think the implication that somehow Nash said, well, I'm going to control my hallucinations now and do this on my own, it's one of the things I would have changed in the movie. I think is not accurate. Without the medications, you can't do it on your own.
He was able to find paths and coping skills that he could kind of latch onto to give him a reprise from this kind of ongoing anguish and anxiety that he's probably still living with today.
A beautiful mind represents the way things should be. A beautiful mind represents a success story, someone who did get treatment, someone who had community care, someone who, fortunately, his disease became less severe with age. The tragedies that we look at all too often on a daily basis represent the large majority of people with schizophrenia who don't get that kind of care, who don't get adequate treatment, and for whom we're failing.